All right. Well, I'll let the people in and we'll go from there. Thanks so much, though, Julianne, for doing this. Julianne, there seems to be a little bit of background noise where you are, so
Um,
it seems to help a little bit more.
is
Perhaps
that
just,
okay?
yeah, that's much better. Much better. So, welcome everybody who's joining us today. We're just kind of getting through our tech and getting things going. And excited to talk about the Caribbean right now. It's a cold, rainy day where I am, so just for me to dream about sunshine is perfect. So my name's Kyle Dine. I'm the CEO and founder of Equal Eats, and I am honored to be joined today by Julianne Ponan from Creative Nature. Hey, Julianne, good to see you.
Hi, Carl.
Um, And as people start joining here, I keep admitting people. I also want to introduce a couple members from the Equal Eats team who are going to be helping out today. We have Karina Montagny, who will be helping out with the chat, as well as Lisa Bolton, both very well versed in the world of food allergies. They're dealing with it in their own families and travel as well. So they're going to be relaying some links to you in the chat and helping out where they can. So thank you to Karina and Lisa for joining. And I think we'll get going here. So appreciate you coming today. This is our second time doing this session. We did it last month. We're trying to do a monthly drop-in session where we can simply answer some questions about any upcoming trip you have. Last month we did the theme on Europe, and this month we're going to the Caribbean. Um, by popular demand, we're going back to Europe next month. So June, we're going to be doing another Q&A on Europe. But the Caribbean is a special place in my heart. It's a place where I've gone quite a few times, had some amazing memories, and managed my food allergies quite well there. So looking forward to sharing some tips today with Julianne. I know she's got a lot to share in terms of her trips to the Caribbean. Have some general tips, some facts about this group of countries, this region of the world, and then we're just going to open up to Q&A. Anything that you'd like to ask, we'll try to answer or connect you the best that we can. Chat is available at any point. Feel free just to enter any questions there or just unmute and say hi. So that's us, that's myself, that's Julianne. I'll give a little intro on me and then I'll throw it over to Julianne. So I run Equal Eats. We specialize in allergy translation cards in 50 different languages to help people communicate their dietary restrictions around the world. It was born out of necessity because I wanted to travel. I didn't want to be limited with my allergies to peanuts, tree nuts, egg, seafood, and mustard. I also help run the Allergy Travels Facebook group, which is a very happening spot of 25,000 people giving each other travel tips and advice. So it's a great spot if you're not a member already to check it out. I'm from Canada, but I call Slovenia my home base, where I am married with and I have a child here. So that's where I am right now in sunny Ljubljana in this picture, but it's actually really rainy here today. So dreaming of the Caribbean. Julianne, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi there. Well, Kyle, it is not that sunny here either. It started out sunny this morning, but it is not anymore. Yeah, I'm Julianne Ponan. I'm the founder of Creative Nature. And I founded my company because of my own allergies. So the first allergic reaction I had was when I was 2 years old. And then from there, I found out that I was allergic to peanuts, tree nuts, chickpeas, lentils, sesame, poppy seeds, some medication as well. Yeah, got a whole host of things there. And then, yes, I'm based in the UK. If anyone knows Hampton Court Palace, we are not too far away from that, our offices.
Well, thank you. And in terms of where you've been, Julianne, can you name off the top of your head some of the places in the Caribbean that you've traveled to?
Definitely. So I've been to Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Antigua, Aruba, St. Kitts, St. Thomas, um, St. Lucia, um, Costa Rica. I guess you could sort of say it's Caribbean, it's South America. So yeah, so quite a few places in the Caribbean, and did a Caribbean cruise as well on top of that, where we stopped off on a lot at a lot of ports, and we did that with Royal Caribbean themselves.
Oh, excellent. And this picture here of you, where is this beautiful turquoise water behind you?
I believe that is in. I want to say it's either Costa Rica or Aruba, one of those two places.
Looks great. Um, and for me, a lot of crossover. I've been to Cuba, Curacao, St. Lucia, Aruba, and I think, oh, I don't know if Bermuda would count. It's a little bit,
Yes, yeah, Bermuda does count. I forgot about that one actually.
put Bermuda into the mix. And I think that is it for me. Very fortunate to see those beautiful islands. So that picture there, that's me and my daughter. That was when she was just 5 months old. We were so lucky. We went to Cuba, and it was this once in a lifetime chance to see the Rolling Stones playing in Cuba. So we went to one of the biggest rock concerts, 500,000 people, and I took a baby. But you never know. There's some amazing things that are happening on the islands, and I was very fortunate to be there at the right time. So today I'm going to go through just a few slides on some facts on the Caribbean in terms of allergy awareness, on food labeling, on restaurants, talk a little bit about some things that generally are helpful to be prepared if you're going to the Caribbean or anywhere, and then we'll have our open Q&A time where you can ask anything. So if questions pop up before that, feel free to put them in the chat at any point, and we'll get to them. But first off, I would love to do a couple polls, just find out who's here amongst us today, because it's always nice to know who's joining us. So our first poll, you can click here. Who's here? Are you a parent or caregiver of a child with food allergies or an individual with food allergies? All right, and I will end that and show you the results. It's a pretty close split here. So we have quite a few individuals with food allergies. Excellent. Just like myself and Julianne, and we have some parents here as well. So we have a little something for everybody here today. The next poll I will launch. Um, what conditions are you or your family managing? Food allergy, asthma, eczema, or hopefully you can check all three if that's applicable to you. Let's see. All right, I'm not surprised. Um, Many, the majority have all three: food allergy, asthma, and eczema. Julianne, are you affected by more than food allergy?
Yeah, so I have asthma and food allergies, but I did have eczema when I was a baby, when I was younger. So it they called me a crisis baby because I would cry all the time because of my skin, in particular. So yes, it wasn't. My mum couldn't understand it at all at the beginning, and because my first anaphylactic reaction wasn't till I was 2 years old.
Oh, wow. Well, it's definitely something that most of our audience is dealing with as well. And for me, it's all three. It's asthma. It's eczema. It's a bit under control today. Some days it's not. I'm gonna try to launch one more poll question, and I don't know. I don't know. It seems not to be. How do I stop getting these polls going? Let's see. Oh, there we go. One more, and I'll launch. Have you ever traveled internationally with food allergies? Oh, it looks like we have some seasoned travelers. Excellent. So uh, nobody answered not yet, which is fine. So hopefully we can take you whatever level you're at of traveling internationally and provide you some more information and some insight and value today.
It's
Okay,
great that people are traveling though, so that's a really good sign.
absolutely. Fantastic. And if you want to share in the chat what dietary restrictions, what food allergies you're dealing with, that would be fantastic. That's really helpful just for everyone to know if you're comfortable sharing. So I'm going to get going through a couple facts on the Caribbean, some labeling laws, restaurant laws, state of awareness. Julianne, feel free just to jump in at any point. I have some, it's very hard to find very consistent information across all of these countries. So hopefully we can tag team and share a little bit of insight just based on what we've witnessed firsthand. But the one piece of information that I found very interesting is that there is the CARICOM group of countries, the Caribbean Community and Common Market, which I think easiest point of reference is the European Union, the EU. It's a group of countries that have combined forces to have a little bit more might economically, to share resources, to create laws, legislations, guidelines that then can be enacted across these countries. So you can see those key members and some associate members there. This is important for the most part because of the labeling guidelines that are in the Caribbean region. So with CARICOM, they've established standards that mandates that labels must list allergens. So similar to the US, similar to Canada, similar to Europe, there are specific allergens, priority allergens that must be called out on ingredient lists. These are the ones right here, as per CARICOM's labeling law. The only one that is not consistent from at least the US is sesame. So if you're dealing with sesame allergy, that's one to be aware of, that it is not something that's getting the standardized labeling treatment. Um, and outside of that, if you're from the Europe, obviously it's not covering any of those top 14 either with celery, lupin, mustard. So those are the things that get special treatment. Now, the interesting thing, and you might have noticed this, Julianne, when you were traveling around, is that there's a lot of imported products from all over the world. Did you notice that when you were shopping for prepackaged
Yes.
food?
Definitely, that's a big thing. Even at sort of breakfast buffet areas where they have prepackaged food, they do a lot of import.
Yeah. Now, the creative nature available in the Caribbean, I'm hoping it is because it's so wonderful products.
No, unfortunately, it's not. We are available in the Cayman Islands, but
Oh,
not the Caribbean. And we do supply 18 different countries around the world, which is really amazing. But I wish we were in the Caribbean because I could use it as an excuse to get to go on another holiday, but we are not yet.
I would happily go as a salesperson, so happy to help. And that's the thing. You have Dutch islands with Curacao. Specifically, I went to a Dutch grocery store this past year in Curacao, which was fantastic. It had an incredible amount of prepackaged foods that I actually felt very comfortable, familiar brands from Europe. My wife, who has celiac disease, found very familiar brands that were gluten free. So sometimes it works in your advantage that you are so far away, but uh, there's prepackaged food that comes from all over the world to these islands that you might recognize and trust. One thing I
I
find,
would say also be careful with the when they stick labels over the top, because sometimes that is done in country rather than before it's exported, and sometimes there are human errors where they've accidentally labeled the wrong product. So just double checking that. So you should be able to as well ask them, can I just check the underneath of the label to make sure that the original one does say free from.
that's a really great point. One of the things I find with the stickers that go over top of the original ingredient list, especially here in Slovenia, is they put in the translated language on top. And sometimes the may contain statement is not included. It somehow gets omitted as info on the sticker. And you only know that if you actually peel this sticker up. So be very careful with these types of things and do your diligence. But with that being said, these type of precautionary may contain type statements are not mandatory, similar to the rest of the world. These are voluntary. So if you're not sure, as my mom says, when in doubt, do without, is still a golden rule across the Caribbean. Oh, and the other thing here is that no mandatory contains. So there's not going to be some type of, this contains peanuts, this contains milk. That's not mandatory. So if you're from a country where that is the standard, just be aware that it's not consistent in the Caribbean. Now, restaurant laws, I think the main point here is that there's no uniform legislation across the Caribbean requiring restaurants to disclose allergen information. It varies by establishment, from cruise lines to hotels, resorts, local restaurants. Um, and we hear across the board of good experiences, some not so great. Julianne, how has it been for you dining out at actual food service establishments in the Caribbean?
I think that so for me, I do a lot of work before I choose a hotel or choose a if it's a for example, many people go for package holidays. If you do, I would really suggest doing the due diligence into the place that you're staying as well. A lot of the Caribbean hotels in particular that I found, for example, RIU or Rio, some people call it, um, they will allow you to speak to their catering teams. They will allow you to speak to the people at reception, everything, and they will go out of their way to just help to get you to understand what they can do, what they can't do. Blue Waters, for example, in Antigua, was absolutely incredible. We had advice on exactly what we could eat, what we couldn't eat, the buffet stations, and how they were free from, for example, free from dairy, free from sesame. Sesame, I would say, is probably the one of the harder ones. As you said, it's not a declared one, and so when it's not a declared one, it's a bit hit and miss on the understanding around that allergy, from oil to actual the sesame seed, because they will sometimes say, oh, it doesn't have any sesame seed in, meaning that it doesn't have the actual physical seed, that the oil it could have it in.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that's a bit of an issue. And then if you are allergic to shellfish, I would just say with the Caribbean in particular, especially all-inclusive hotels, the oils that they use, they sometimes use shellfish oil, so they will use shared pots, shared utensils, etc. And as for a shellfish allergy, I would say that is one to watch out for.
All really great tips. And for me, I've had pretty positive experiences. I think one of the main things that I keep in mind is that for most of these places, tourism is such a main driver of their economy, massive, and they do their best to please, to get guests to come back. So for me, when I've gone to restaurants, whether it was resort or off resort, I've just been met with real great attentiveness and willingness to work with me to get safe meals. So I haven't had much resistance, luckily, in any restaurant situation down there. So that's
I find they go above and beyond, especially in the Caribbean. I think, as you said, they rely so heavily on tourism, even in the off seasons in particular. I would suggest going in the off season. I know some people say stay away because it's hurricane season and all of that. We always go away in that sort of time. It is cheaper, obviously. If you don't have kids in school, for example, you can pick to go around that time, and they will be even more attentive because they genuinely just need business and they need you to have a good experience so that you'll recommend it to someone else. Whereas I find that sort of differs when areas in Europe, for example, where they're very overpopulated with tourism and they're not as reliant because they know people will come again and again. The Caribbean strives to make it better for you, even to the extent where they take you and say, look, this is how we're producing it, this is where your meal is going to be cooked.
absolutely, and it's becoming more and more common for resorts, big chains of resorts, to have allergen policies now and procedures that they're transparent, they're to be expected. I'm going to put a link in the chat right now to the Allergy Travels Facebook group, where this is a search for Caribbean, and it is a whole chain, a whole thread of different posts of people asking for positive experiences at restaurants, resorts across the Caribbean. So that's a great resource to peruse through. In terms of the state of awareness, allergy awareness, it's said that maybe not as widespread as some other regions, probably due to lower prevalence. But Julianne, have you noticed that it was not understood as commonly as it would be at home?
I found it really easy to communicate and be understood. Luckily, in many of the countries, English is spoken widely. So I think that is really, really helpful. I've been to places such as Turkey, for example, where I haven't been able to communicate very well, and it's not been understood, versus where I've been to Jamaica, St. Lucia, and it's been absolutely fine. I think it's explaining how severe your allergy is. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, do you not like that food, or are you allergic to that food?" And I think it's the understanding the difference. But as soon as they know that you are allergic, I've been welcomed with open arms. So I'm a big advocate of, yes, the Caribbean might feel so far away, but actually they do know about allergies, they do understand them as long as you're able to communicate well. And because English is spoken, I think it's a fantastic place that you can go.
Yeah, I fully agree. Very fantastic, very hot, very sunny, very beautiful. I'm really dreaming today. Um, I'm going to go through just some general tips and planning and preparation to set yourself up for success. And whether it's insurance, making sure that you are covered and it covers anaphylaxis. You know, you never really want to think of the worst, but it's important to plan for it as well. What I would say,
Your bank can do it as well. I don't know if anyone uses their banks in the UK in particular. They offer fantastic ones where you can just add it to your account, and also, oh, someone does use their bank. Fantastic, and you can always have all your allergies on there, which I find really helpful because it's all linked through. So yeah, that's just a tip from me.
fantastic. My only tip, I haven't had an allergic reaction in the Caribbean, but my daughter had a bit of emergency medically, and we found to get a doctor, to get seen quickly, we needed cash. We needed some US dollars with us to get things moving along quicker. So you have some systems there that are not the same in terms of medical facilities and speed. And for us in that situation, it was one where just having extra cash really made a difference to get a doctor to come to us quickly. So that would be my one piece of advice: is having some extra currency is never a bad thing. Obviously, packing extra medicine, your adrenaline, epinephrine, having your own backup food, is important. But also just having a plan, as Julianne said. It sounds like you do a lot of research in advance of where you're going to go, setting yourself up for success.
We always try and book a hotel that has a doctor on site. So a lot of hotels will actually have a doctor, and you can speak to them about epinephrine. So if they actually carry any of that in their facility. If they don't, usually we say, oh, okay, maybe they don't understand as much. But majority of the big chains will now. I think they're becoming more and more aware of it. It just enables you to get to emergency medical care quicker. And as you said, if you don't, yes, you do need a little bit of cash to get things moving. We found though in Antigua, where I did have not a anaphylactic reaction, but a slight reaction to on my wedding day actually to the like hair stuff that was put on my hair. I didn't realize that it contained an oil that was a nut oil. 'Cause didn't read that packaging. All the food, everything else was fine, but unfortunately did, and I had to have someone just come on site and make sure I was okay. But I didn't need to take an EpiPen or anything. But it happened so quickly, and being able to have someone attend to you quick, like in that matter of minutes, it sort of puts your mind at ease.
I'm sorry that happened, but glad it turned out okay. On your wedding day, really?
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, I mean, I've lived with allergies, so it can you can only prepare so much.
Jeez. And then lastly here is a communication plan, which I'll go to. in a couple slides, but essentially, if knowing if the country has a different language, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Spanish, there's some islands where Portuguese is can be common as well. So just doing your research of is it a different language outside of English that's spoken? Sometimes it's a blend. I think it was St. Lucia where it's Papiamento, where it's this combination of different languages. I don't think I remember anything more than Binbini, which is welcome, but important to know what languages and what's your plan.
A
Um,
lot of French as well is spoken in the
yeah,
Caribbean as well.
Guadeloupe, absolutely. Saint Martin. And I think there's some islands that are Saint Martin, where half the island is Dutch, half the island is French. So just know
Yes,
where on the island you're going to be. Thank you. Karina's posted a link to the planning checklist from Ecolete, so that can be really handy just to make sure that you've got your ducks in a row leading up to your trip. Julianne, I just put up a whole bunch of your wonderful photos here, and I don't know if you want to just share a couple of your highlights of the Caribbean, of some of the tips that you have just based on some of these wonderful places that you've been, and any stories you wanted to share before we get into questions.
yeah, definitely. So, with the picture on the right, where I'm standing, where I've got my arms open to the sun, that's in Antigua, and that was when we did a trip around the whole island, and I was a little bit worried about it. Antigua's quite a small island, and I was a little bit worried at the beginning because we would be out for so long from the hotel, the whole day, without any sort of food or anything like that. So they would be cooking on the boat and preparing on food, and then we would be eating there. What I found really useful for me is having a checklist. So similar to like the Equal Eats planning checklist, but a checklist that you can send them just to say, okay, these are the foods that I can eat, giving them like a suggestion. If you look at their website, we booked with a place called Extreme Antigua, and they were beyond helpful. They said, yeah, just send any suggestions over of the dishes you'd like, and we will make sure that nothing is taken on board that you're allergic to. And they said, I'm sure all the other passengers on board the boat will not mind at all. And I found that really quite inclusive. Like, they didn't say, oh no, you have to have something separate. They didn't say, no, you can't go on this trip. Instead, they said 100% we can make sure it's catered for, and actually everyone else is going to have the same thing. And yeah, we had sort of like plantain, we had rice, and I couldn't have the beans because I'm allergic to them. So they just they substituted that out for different like types of chilies, which was really, really tasty as well. And then we always do sort of like other trips off the country whenever we visit. So we try and do as many excursions as we can, and also during those excursions we like to see like the local culture and understand how people live in that country, because I do think that's quite important. I mean, I'm very lucky to have grown up and always travelled to multiple countries, and my mum and dad pushed me to learn about these cultures. But what we find is talking to people in their culture, you can understand whether they do have an understanding of allergies or not. I always find that quite interesting of, okay, does the younger generation know that allergies are on the rise, or the older generation, do they not know anything at all? So I think that's really, really interesting. The Blue Cenote Trail, this was, I can't remember the park's name, but it's a whole park where you can go and see multiple things, from like zip lining through to swimming in a cenote, underground caving. Underground caving was really, really cool. Again, though, I was quite nervous because going underground and not knowing how long I would be down there, carrying all my EpiPens and everything, I would just recommend whenever you're going to these places, make sure you're carrying things that you know where your EpiPens are, it's kept cool, there's no issues, because that, I think, is a prime area that you can forget things. I know for a fact when I went to the US, I ended up forgetting my EpiPens on a sunbed, and moving to a different area, not realizing I didn't have my EpiPens with me, and having to run halfway across the park to get them. So it's just about really managing that and making sure you've got everything with you.
Sounds like a wonderful spot there. And just a reminder, if anybody has questions, we'll answer them at any point. So feel free to unmute or just put them in the chat. But these are all wonderful pictures. I agree. Going on the excursions, just getting to know the culture, where you're at, is so important. Um, I went to when I was in Curacao earlier this year. We went out a couple nights into the main city, Willemstad, to see what is it like at nighttime, which was great. But even more impressive to me was going on a run in 6 a.m., which is way too early, but just to see how the city wakes up and to see the market stalls, the fruits getting stocked up, just really how it, not a lot of tourists around, but what's the city like? And I really enjoyed that experience. But for me, I've gone on some trips with family, really lucky to have some big trips. I've gone just as a couple, as a family, and with all of them, I found the more vocal I am about my food allergies, the more upfront I am, the better the experience. We're arriving at the hotel and just saying, I have allergies. Is there any type of procedures here? Oh yeah, thanks for telling us. Please fill out this form, and then we're gonna connect you with the chef. And that wouldn't have happened unless I spoke up. So really important to speak up, then you can actually, perhaps they have a procedure where you're tagged, and then going to a restaurant like this one on the left, they knew of me already. They knew of my allergies, and I was welcomed in open arms saying, we're going to make a safe meal for you. So I do think the more that you put it out there, the safer you're going to be. Um, a lot
Did
of
you use your Equal Eats cards when you were out there?
I don't, oh, I did when I was in Cuba, that's for sure. Cuba, there was quite a language barrier, but Curacao English was so commonplace that it was really no issue to communicate.
So I used mine throughout, like as in just anyway. I found it really helpful, but just for for example, whenever we went to dinner, they would always take it with them. So
Yeah.
the servers would either take a picture with it and take it back for the chef, or they would physically take the card. And I found that so much, I found their lives were made easier, and also my life was made easier because I felt like they were really taking it seriously.
Yeah, it gives that peace of mind, especially with a long list of allergens, to make sure nothing slips through the cracks at all. Yeah. So overall, it's been wonderful. This is me before cliff jumping, and it was at a restaurant where, again, had a really positive experience, just explaining my allergies and eating safely, and then I jumped off a cliff directly after the meal. So a really, really special place for me. So that's kind of all we wanted to share, and we have much more and probably in the back of our heads, stories, experiences. So happy to answer any questions, hear of your stories of anybody attending today. Um, can't, we're not doctors, so can't really give much medical advice, but we don't have too many people on the line, so you can ask as many questions as you want. There's really no limit, and we'll try to answer to the best of our ability. So, yeah, please feel free. If anybody has any questions at all, happy to answer them. Yeah, I'm curious if anybody has an upcoming trip that's on the call today. And where are you going to?
Oh, Kareen has asked, can you tell us more about the cruise you went on? Yes, yeah. So I've done a few cruises. However, I found that the Royal Caribbean one was the best in terms of the service and the specifically for allergies. What I liked about Royal Caribbean is before you book with them, you can have a conversation. Also, when you book with them, you'll be contacted on any allergies that you have, which I thought was, I just didn't think that would happen. And when you actually embark the ship, they then at the docking area, they will then take your details, they'll scan your passport, all of that, and they have that all in their system already. And what they do is then they introduce you to your servers for the whole entire duration you're on the ship. So they will rotate for like lunch and dinner, etc. But you will meet both of them. And what I found with that was they already knew my preferences. So from the first day when I sat down with them and I said, "Oh, this is the type of thing I can have," and they went out of their way. I'd never had anything in like a cheesecake out. Like I'd never been able to because it's always got may contain. They made me my own cheesecake, like banoffee cheesecake, served it, and I was genuinely worried to try it because I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this, but I found it was really easy to do. There's lots of restaurants on board the ship as well. Obviously, with that, you don't have the same server, so I always tended to eat in the specific main restaurant because I knew that that was safe for me, and there was hundreds of choices anyway, so you really didn't need to go elsewhere. But if you wanted to, there was things like the hot dog stands and the fast food places, which I saw kids absolutely loved. And there was still, I saw everything was sort of labelled really clearly, from gluten-free to dairy-free to even nut-free, which I think was good. The other thing I found with cruises, what I loved is you could request a packed lunch to take off for your excursions. So you could have it ready to go for the morning, which meant that they would be completely catered for your allergies. You would take it off the ship. You wouldn't have to then worry about, say you wanted to eat at a restaurant outside, which we did with my parents, for example. And I would just have my packed lunch and they would be able to eat something at the restaurant. So I found that really helpful. So yeah, cruises, definitely. I think there's good and bad ones. MSC for me, it wasn't as good. I actually, unfortunately, had a reaction. And it wasn't a reaction on the cruise ship, it was a reaction outside, and they were rushing me back to the cruise ship to get medical attention. But I was fine in the end. But yes, unfortunately, I had to have my EpiPens, and luckily I was okay. But it just proves that one cruise to the next, you just have to make sure you're really careful and vigilant and ask the right questions, especially in buffet areas. I would say just be really careful. And one of my main tips is there's always a pancake station wherever you go, and there tends to be dairy-free ones. But what I find is when they put the peanut butter on their like pancake or their toast or whatever it might be, it's like a pull down. And then a lot of children go next to it and put the jam or the maple syrup on, but then hit the peanut butter into the jam nozzle, so it then cross contact, so you wouldn't be able to have it. And I genuinely wouldn't have seen that unless my other half said, "Look, you need to be careful with this."
Oh, lucky you. We got a lot of questions coming in. This is great. And thank you so much. I've never been on a cruise, so this is really interesting to
I
me.
definitely recommend you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Take your young one on a cruise.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love it. I'm a little bit concerned about the seasickness, but I guess you don't know
If you get a balcony room,
then
you'll be fine.
what
It's
a
about
great excuse.
seeing, I think.
It's a great excuse to get a balcony room. All right, so we'll jump on to the next one. Thank you for that question. The next one, Simon said, I've never heard about the use of seashell oil or shellfish oil, I think you said. Thanks for sharing. Is it common? Is it used to fry food or do they use it as an ingredient?
It's more common, for example, in the Caribbean because they use it for flavor. So, for example, when it's shellfish oil. So, for example, if they're cooking like crab or lobster or something fresh, and then they will use that oil that they've cooked it in other dishes. And that's the thing to worry about, is the fact that they're using it as a flavor because it's been fantastic that they've cooked something already in it and they don't want to waste it. So that's where I would say it then becomes common. So for example, when you go to a pasta station, they might have used the water and the oil in where they've cooked the crab meat and then use that in the pasta to give it a better flavor. But
Oh, wow.
that's where you need to watch out for. So just asking, oh, has this been, is there any extra water or oil been used in this bar the, for example, vegetable oil?
Yeah, just as on a quick search, it looks like as a flavor enhancer, sometimes in curry sauces, paella, certain rice dishes, but also just as a frying oil in general.
Yeah. It's
Um,
just a flavor. It's just all about flavor, and they love adding things in that enhance it.
and that leads to another great question. I'll just bounce down a little bit. It was about, where was it? Just in general, overall, are there other foods that might have tree nuts that are like a cultural food that you might not know of? I think they mentioned mole sauce as being one that has peanut butter in it. But are there other kind of cultural dishes that you've encountered that you've never really heard of before, but had to be extra alert for?
I tend to stick with exactly what I know, so I wouldn't say I've kind of been that adventurous. However, this is different from the Caribbean, but in Tanzania, we found that a lot of different nuts from sort of, I don't know, lots of different tree nuts from almond, Brazil nut, like cashew, they were all being used in various types of dishes with like lentils. And it was just it seemed like it was across lots of dishes, and I had to be very, very particular. For example, even a rice dish would end up having cashew in, and I found that very odd because I'd never experienced that anywhere before, but it seemed to be a big thing over there.
Yeah, and generally for me, the rule of Kyle doesn't get dessert,
Yes,
especially when
unless it's
traveling.
creative nature.
Yes, exactly. I treat myself to a lot of things, but dessert I do not, especially when traveling, unless I'm 100% sure, because it is those type of things where those surprises happen, where nuts could get in for that extra flavor, the crunch, the crust. The other thing to keep in mind is coconut, and that's something that is not an issue for a lot of people with a tree nut allergy. But if you're specifically allergic to coconut, it can get into a lot of different food and beverages down in the Caribbean.
Oh,
Also,
definitely, and it's really careful on the beaches as well when you're sort of if you have children and they're playing, there's a lot of coconuts left on the side and things like that. I know that's how we found out I was allergic to coconut was when I touched it and touched my mouth and just came up with hives.
geez, yeah, well, it's pretty. There's just like a smell of coconut in the air, it seems, or maybe it's just the rum. Um,
Maybe it's the rum. Well, that's another thing is alcohol you do have to be a little bit careful on, and it's more I find the garnishes because they love to make their drinks look really pretty. Um, and with that, you sometimes see that they will garnish the rim of the glass in a nut, and that is something just to obviously you can physically see that, but just in case if they've put any like liqueur that contains any sort of nut oil or almond oil, it's just to watch out for.
And I love seeing things get made. I love having those conversations in real time and seeing a drink get made and like what are you putting in there? And I'm allergic to this, and I'd like to have a drink, but not let's make sure it's safe. So anytime you can actually talk with somebody, it's a great opportunity to learn more about the dishes. Another question, does anybody have experience with traveling to the Dominican Republic with nut and sesame allergies? Julianne, you've
Yes,
been, right?
I've been 4 times now. So I've been to Punta Cana 3 times and then Puerto Plata. If you're going to Dominican, I definitely recommend the Punta Cana side if you want a beach that is beautiful and serene. The Puerto Plata is lovely, but it's more on the rougher, the Atlantic side. In terms of allergies, I found the bigger hotels were very, very easy to work with, especially as they all had pretty good catering teams and pretty large catering teams. The breakfast side, the buffet, I would say, is probably your biggest worry, and then the dessert area. Sesame wasn't a problem for me at all, and I have a severe sesame allergy. I genuinely used the Equal Eats card the last time I went, which was last year in September. And the issues I had with the sesame was mainly breakfast. It was the bread side, I would never be able to have any of that. They did give me gluten-free bread, but I don't think it was understood that I could have gluten. Just didn't need the sesame. But yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think that you can do a lot of excursions as well for whether you're like an adult or have children. Really easy to communicate as well. I would get a Equal Eats card translated into Spanish as well, just because it helps. It just gives you that sort of communication that you can have with anyone in the country versus just the people at the hotels who regularly speak English.
Yeah, and we actually specialize. We have Spanish for Spain and we have Spanish for Latin America. So there are some subtle differences that are really important allergen wise. So we do offer that with Equal Eats in our cards. Um, and the other thing I'll piggyback on when you do an excursion, I found the tour guide can be such a great liaison in terms of being someone that can advocate for you, that can speak with you to the chef, to food service staff, and help convey the seriousness of your allergens. Where if there's a meal that's involved, and they love tips usually, so they're happy to try to make things better for you. Another question was specific to hazelnut. I'm sorry, Simon, to find out that your daughter has just got diagnosed with hazelnut allergy. That's a tough one. It's pretty easy to manage in Canada, but what about the use of hazelnut in the Caribbean? Uh, I would say again, it's those desserts. It's the things, the nice to haves in life, where unfortunately, hazelnut is a staple in spreads like Nutella. I know there's different Nutella knockoff types of spreads that come from Europe to a lot of these islands, so be careful of the spread station if that's the thing. Different pastries, and then perhaps different ice creams. I just stay away from ice cream altogether, generally, as when I'm
I
traveling.
do as well. I
Right.
think although there was actually back to the cruises, they can bring you your own ice cream and you can actually learn to make your own ice cream on Royal Caribbean, which is super cool as well. So I do think there are the pros of that they have more facilities to be able to do that versus when you're in country and you're at a hotel. But yeah, I would say staying away from ice cream is
Yeah.
pretty much standard.
Simon, I'm assuming your daughter's younger, so liqueurs won't be an issue, but there are some like Frangelico that have hazelnut inside that might be used even in desserts, so that's something to be considerate of as well.
And Nutella seems to be everywhere in the Caribbean as well. But it's everywhere, but it's contained. I think you can avoid it, and the issue mainly happens where the children are allowed to sort of go and help themselves, and that can be across multiple stations, and touching things can make cross contact happen.
Yeah. Um, some other questions here. Did you use the Spanish Latin American or standard Spanish equally card for the Dominican?
I used the Latin American one, I believe.
I think
Yes.
that's what we sent you. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
still have it, so
Yeah, and Ellen, it's a great question. The reason that we do it, there's a couple different allergens that um, are different than Spanish that's spoken in Spain, but also it's tough in Latin America because even within those countries there are some different words for certain allergens. And the way that we handle that, instead of doing a card for every single island, it's we do a slash. So uh, a word like peanut will have, in some countries it will be known as mani. In other countries it will be known as cacahuete. And we will have on our card mani slash cacahuete, so it will be understood universally. They will get one of these terms, probably both. Versus in Spain, just a little bit more straightforward. Versus all of the different variations that can be used in the Caribbean islands. Catrice has a great question. How do cruise staff typically deal with medical emergencies given there's no access to a hospital on a boat?
So on board there is a hospital area, as per se. It's not a full hospital, but it's you've got doctors, you've got people that can give you medical attention. The issue is you are correct. If you're not docked in port, there is no access. But then majority of cruises as well will have ways to get you to a medical facility. So, for example, if they have to fly over and get you, or how far they are to the nearest docking point, that's all taken into account. But you're also carrying your own medical emergency epinephrine, for example. So that's what you'd rely on.
And then we're going to start wrapping it up, but we'll get squeezing maybe two more questions here. One was, do we know of any travel agents that specialize in this area of the world with food allergies? You know,
We used Q only. I don't know if other people know them, but I found them really useful because their travel agent in particular did all the hard work between getting to speak to for example, the catering teams, the staff on site, everything we wanted answered, they handled, and they handled it with a smile as well. Nothing was too much to ask, and it didn't make us feel like we were being difficult at all. I do know obviously TUI is another one that does a lot of package holidays to the Dominican and to the Caribbean. We have gone with TUI before, but we've found them quite difficult, if I'm being completely honest. Like we've booked multiple holidays with them, so we haven't gone away because they're awful, but they won't go out of their way like Q only does, but you do pay that extra price to have that guaranteed, tailored experience. Yes, a lot of people do say that they have it. People don't always have the best experience with TUI, saying that they are the lower cost package provider. So sometimes it's a bit hit and miss. On one TUI holiday, I've had it absolutely fine, but they won't. The last one we tried to book with them, they wouldn't contact the catering teams. And when I did my destination wedding, I chose again Q only managed that and also provided a wedding planner with it so that we were able to get full catering, because it wasn't just my allergies we had to cater for. I had a lot of people in my party that had multiple requirements. So we had to make sure that all the food was 100% safe.
nice. Um, and I put a couple more options in the chat there of I'm not sure if they specialize in the Caribbean or not, but I know that there's some consultants there, some travel agents that may. So when I looked earlier on in the day, I didn't see anyone that specializes in Caribbean specifically. So you might have to do a little bit more research there. There was one last question just in terms of labeling. So as I mentioned at the start, yes, they should have top allergens labeled. That is part of their guidelines. Sesame is not included in that. That's the main difference. But they do not have mandatory "it contains" statement. You should not expect to find that on a package. You might have imported products from Europe and abroad that do have that, but it's not the mandated norm. So I'm going to just wrap up and give final motivation here in that with all types of travel, I always say it's not easy. You do some preparation. You need to do some steps ahead of time, but it's doable and it's so worth it. Uh, and the Caribbean is such a beautiful area of the world that if you can, it's definitely worth visiting. It's a little slice of paradise. Go at your own pace. You don't have to try to do it all at once. Plan as much as you can, and then just enjoy the beaches, enjoy all the everything it has to offer. Um, Ali is the co-admin of the Allergy Travels group, so she does individualized coaching for people that are traveling around the world. So definitely a great resource. And if you're not a member of the Allergy Travels group, it's just crowdsourced information. It's really wonderful to put out a question in terms of any place you're going to. You're going to get answers there. And of course, EcoLeads, we're here for you no matter whether you're going to Korea, with that card, or anywhere in the Caribbean with Latin American Spanish. We're happy to help with getting cards in your hands. We have an app where you can just download our app and toggle through that, or print at home cards. Google Translate can be helpful too for scanning ingredient lists, but it can also have issues too. Always check out reviews if you can find them for places around the Caribbean. And I think, yes,
Also, there's the new AI glasses. I don't know if anyone's seen them. We're going to be trying them out in Japan, but you literally can just speak to someone and it will translate it into your language straight into your ears within zero point 0.5 seconds. So really excited about that.
that's awesome. I can't wait to see more about that. And then let's see, in terms of evaluation, we're still wondering whether we should make this a monthly thing, whether we should just keep doing this every month. So your feedback helps us know whether we should continue on, keep talking about different countries, different areas of the world. We'd love to hear what you're thinking, how you found this, and we love the feedback either way. All right, well, that is very helpful to see that 100% of you would like us to do this again. Thank you very much. And I think I have one more poll question. Um, if you have any ideas of how we can make this better, please feel free to put it in the chat. We would love to hear more about how we can make this better moving forward. But oh, I do have one more. Sorry. Stop sharing this one. And after attending today's session, do you feel more confident about traveling specifically to Caribbean, same or less confident? Excellent. Well, glad that this was helpful. Thank you very much. One last question, Julianne, can you recap about sesame?
Recap in what would you like me to recap?
I'm not sure. Oh, that it's not listed.
Oh, yes, yeah. So it's not listed as a declared allergen. So they at, on all packaging for example, where they say at stations and things, they don't have to say they don't have to call out sesame at all. So you just need to ask for that because it won't be on menus or anything like that.
Well, I want to thank everybody who attended today. That's a session. It's been an hour. Really appreciate it. Hopefully you got some great value out of this. I want to thank the Equal Eats team, Karina, Lisa, for helping out with the chat and the resources. And most importantly, thank you, Julianne, for sharing a wealth of knowledge from your amazing trips through the Caribbean. I hope that creative nature gets an in over there, so it gives me way more excuses to go over to the Caribbean and eat safe. So thank you very much for your time today. Much appreciated.
Well, thank you too, and hopefully everyone can take creative nature in their bag with their Equal Eats card too.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, have a good rest of your day and enjoy making your plans, your daydreams for your big Caribbean safe adventure in the future. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.